What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? I'm your host, Chris Merrill. We are back with another episode of New York City Meets Bama with Miss
Katerina.
We are back at it again. And what all did you do this week?
This week has been flying by. It literally doesn't feel like tomorrow's Friday.
Yeah, that is kind of wild. We've been midst of a launch of a new product, fighting with CRMs, websites, partnered with multiple people, family members, outsiders, people overseas. Like, it's been constant to get this thing rolled out, and we've got a deadline set of October 9th, so we will see what we launch whenever it comes around. But either way, we're going to push forward and get it done.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and we got a boat.
Oh, yeah, it's a big boat, you could say. It's considered a yacht. I'm not going to brag. It's got 2 bedrooms, 2 baths. It's kind of cool. But it's going to be a big marketing piece. I had a guy tell me a story one time because we were talking about discussing the names of the yacht or, the boat. And he was telling me, don't name it something, so much sentimental. He said, this is a marketing piece for you. This is a business tool. And I said, what do you mean? He said, you name it something that'll draw attraction to what you do in a questionable way. I was like, what does that entail? And he was saying, like his was named like Miss Toby's Wagon. And I didn't understand that, but it was a quotation that goes to a oil line that he was building overseas. So people would ask him that, and that was some sort of trail that they used to get there, and he'd go into the whole details of what he does, and that's how he was getting capital for his investments. And that boat was a marketing tool at that point. So it's pretty neat. Yeah. So
I'm glad that you remembered that. That's actually pretty smart. We can name it what we're going to launch tomorrow.
Dun, dun, dun.
Anyway, with normal life, we are turning a random room in our house into my office, and our friends helped us with the ceiling. Literally so much dust. I almost wanted to murder all of them, but it was horrible.
To turn off your HVAC or your central air unit whenever creating that much dust.
It was horrible. I was so upset. I've been cleaning every day the same thing because there's dust everywhere.
It's just dust.
And more dust keeps getting created. But we're almost done because my friend Lizzie, shout out to Lizzie, she came over yesterday, and literally this morning we've been painting and I guess sanding the walls and all that good stuff. But we are almost done, so then I can finally have my dream office.
Oh, yeah. It's almost there.
It's almost there.
I'm going to stay at our actual office, but she wants a home office too again, so.
I like to just roll out of bed and go to work.
I have
go
seen
my
you.
Walking pad.
You've had a laptop in bed more than anyone I know. Like, I don't know.
I went to college.
I ended up watching Suits.
I went to college. College, you literally have a cheap desk that they give you that is very uncomfortable, and then you just end up doing work in your bed. You eat in your bed, do work in your bed, socialize in your bed, so.
Oh. So socialize in your bed?
And other things.
Oh, God. Okay. Yeah, so on other news, we've got 2 closings scheduled for today after this podcast, so yeah, it's another good day. So we're moving along. Got a refinance coming through. That's it. I think you're caught up for the moment.
My parents are coming
dun, dun, dun.
in a couple of days. Actually, when this launches, they would have already left. So they're coming this next
that
week.
means you get to hear all the stories next episode.
Stay tuned.
So just to give you a rundown, it's these individuals, her family, first time in Alabama. They've never seen the muddy water down here. They're from Connecticut, so it's a little different ball game. They've never hung out this far south for this long, so we'll see if we get them some education or we scare them off, one of the two. But maybe we'll have some bloopers attached to the next episode to show you some of the stuff that we got them involved in.
That's going to be funny. My mom's going to be like, okay, I'm ready to leave.
That's it.
Anyway, are you excited for our guest today? We finally have a guest again. Because everyone got sick of hearing our voices.
That's not true. No, I think they were ready for more. But anyways, we do have 2 amazing guests coming on here inside just a minute. So we will be excited to introduce them and let them expel some knowledge to us because they are both powerful individuals in their career field. And for all of us on this entrepreneurial journey, they have some powerful features to add to our tool belt. So let's do it. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We have 2 special guests here, Dug and Heidi. Both these individuals I've met a few times, and each time I get to learn something new about myself or about my entrepreneurial journey. So I hope they get to teach you guys some things as well. Dug, I don't even know what to call what you do or did. I've seen you as a rock star, as a singer. You wear the best suits, the custom suits I've seen anybody wear. Heidi, the few times I spent with you, I had to relearn everything about myself and my thoughts. So it's so it's been interesting. I hope everybody gets to live the same journey that I've gotten to be around with you guys.
Mhm.
It's great to
Thank
see
so
you
much.
guys. Awesome to see you guys.
You as well. So, what is your current occupation? I know the viewers have no idea, the listeners don't know what you do yet, so can you catch us up? Doug, you want to go first?
Well, we do stuff together and separately. So as you shared earlier, the high level started out as a musician and realized I was helping people kind of lose themselves a bit. And then peak of my career is when Napster came out. So I had to reinvent myself. For those of you who, do your research to figure out what Napster is. But had to reinvent myself and got deep into personal development. And so really applied what I learned with Tony Robbins. And I was already a master practitioner of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. So I was coaching and working with bands. And then as I was doing that, Heidi and I got to be speaking more often. And while on the road with Tony, we got together. And one of the things we wanted to do, or a vision I had, was to create a company that would help people get their act together in all areas of life. And Heidi was, when I reached out to her, I thought she'd be the relationship expert. And so I'm sharing this with the pretense to give you kind of a whole view, and we share more, and Heidi will dive a lot deeper into, where we've been going. But we ended up leaving the personal development space and brought it to the drug and alcohol treatment space, where we created and ran the family program. We worked with all the clients and the families, and that kind of set us on a path of deep healing and helping people really find a way to move from addictions of all kinds to a level of sobriety that made a life worth being sober for. And then with that, I'll let Heidi dive in even deeper.
Oh, yeah.
So I help people that have complicated relationships. People a lot of us can get really great business advice and follow a recipe and be successful. And we're like, oh my God, yeah, that works. Here's step 1, step 2, step 3. Making money's easy. I don't know. I say that and people are like, really? But it is. But, follow the formula. Success is easy, but the one area that most people suffer is in the area of their personal and intimate relationships. And I find that sometimes these people are super successful, but they end up with the most broken people. And they're in these relationships with people that are hurting, they're struggling, their partners are addicted or narcissistic, and they're trying to fix them. I work with a lot of heroes, a lot of fixers, a lot of people that are, so they're so frustrated. They have everything else, but they just don't have that reciprocal, true love they always dreamed they would have. They have heartache instead, or anxiety, or confusion. And so I want to help people rectify that so that they can really just have what they're meant to have, which is a beautiful relationship, a loving relationship, mutually beneficial, firing on all cylinders.
Makes
Yeah.
perfect sense.
But I like to
love it.
deal with
You went through
complexity.
one
I like the complexity. I like things to be difficult.
Oh, yeah. Well, then, we can help. We can help. That is phenomenal. Wow. Okay. So what made you to target or sort of emphasize that was the group of people that you're going to help inside the substance abuse area?
Well, I started off as a regular old relationship coach. I was slinging the same information everybody else was slinging, how to catch them and keep them, masculine and feminine energy, how to be, all those kinds of normal relationship tips. But I was finding that the people that really needed the biggest help, it wasn't cookie cutter advice that was going to help them. These are people that grew up in addicted households, or grew up with absent parents, or grew up with people that hurt them, or grew up with addiction in their dynamic. And those people don't need regular old dating tips. They need to learn about love and what love really looks like. They got confused, in their upbringing, that love is painful, love is hard, love hurts. And they have all these messages about it that really constrict their ability to have a normal, healthy, functioning relationship. So what I saw is the gap. I'm like, who's helping these people? There is help for addicts and alcoholics, but there's no help for the people that really love them. Okay. Or the people who grew up with them. There's Al-Anon, which is like a support group run by other people, which is nothing wrong with that. But there's no strategic advice about the codependency aspect and how growing up in addiction and dysfunction really affects you. And by the way, it doesn't have to be that. It could be having a sick parent. It could be having a sick sibling, anything where you feel like you're lost in the mix and you suffer as a result of that.
Wow. Okay, so it sounds like a lot of what we're looking at is some form of codependency. Like it's either to drugs and alcohol, or what are those for, Heidi?
I'm getting serious. Yeah.
So for the people that are listening, she just put glasses on.
All right. So, but with that codependency, what are the characteristics of someone, and how do you help transition them away, whether they're addicted to or codependent on a substance or a person or whatever it is, because I don't know of when codependency is a good thing in your life.
Yeah, it's not. So I think the best way to explain it is when you grow up in a dysfunctional house, you grow up and you survey the land and you look around and you say, who do I need to be in order to be okay in this family? All right. How am I going to survive this? And we take on a mask, we take on a personality, and I've come up with 8 different personality patterns that people take on. It's like a brave face. It's like, this is the pattern I run. And then once you figure out what pattern you've been running, you can also see that certain patterns attract certain other patterns. So codependencies attract codependents, right? We attract each other. And some of the patterns are a fixer pattern, for example. I grew up in a dysfunctional household. In order for me to feel okay in that household, I got to take charge. I got to be in control. I become the hero, the young adult. I run to the rescue. And then I grow up with that mentality and I get into relationships. And who do I look for? Broken people. And I attract victims, and victims need rescued. So the fixers and the victims hook up, right? And they're in this codependent relationship and they don't know what, and then controllers and pleasers hook up. And then, so there's 8 different patterns that people enact. And once you understand that, you can understand everything about how you do relationships.
Wow. That is awesome. That is, I remember you actually running through, I guess that was the 8 patterns that we went through last time we were together, and it was about as impactful as the statement you just made. I was like, man, how does she know me so well?
Wait, can you go deeper into the 8 for the people that don't know what you're talking about? Because I personally am very interested in hearing all 8.
Okay. The fixer is the first pattern, and the fixer we've talked about, and they hook up with now, by the way, there are 5 criteria for each pattern. And if you really want this, you can take a test over on my site and find out what pattern you are today. Okay. Because I created a test. I partnered with some people to create a test. Okay.
Yeah. It'll be in the show notes.
Okay. Perfect. The test will be there. So another pattern that people enact is a withholder pattern. You grow up in a household where you're a really sensitive person, but you learn early on that your sensitivity is a liability. And so you learn how to protect yourself from being overly vulnerable. Vulnerability is a weakness for you. You don't know you have vulnerability hangovers. When you share too much about yourself, the next day you'll do something to create some conflict so that you can create some space of safety again. Your withholders are very binge restrict. They're all in or all out. A lot of withholders have a binge drinking or some kind of issue this way because it's like I'm all or nothing. It's very black or white. And withholders attract clingers, people that are all in all the time, no matter what. And they don't realize what they're doing is they're attracting each other because a withholder has a clinger. They don't have to risk being rejected because a clinger is going to stay no matter what. Their biggest fear is abandonment. And a clinger's biggest fear is rejection. And the withholder, when they meet them, they think they're all in love, but all of a sudden they start to pull back and it triggers their trauma. And that's what a trauma bond is. Trauma bond is a feeling that I grew up with on a consistent basis that I recreate in my partnerships. Abandonment, rejection, neglect. And I just keep recreating it over and over again until I get the message that I need to heal that.
So the patterns are actually almost addictions to the behavior.
Addictions to the state,
Yeah.
to the emotional state. I run this pattern so I can feel the way I don't want to feel, but I'm addicted to that feeling and I don't even know it. That's a trauma bond. Another patterns are controllers who have to be in charge of freaking everything all the time. It's their way or the highway. They are uptight. They are freaking all over you. That's my way or the highway. They're hyper vigilant. They're always on the lookout for what could go wrong. They're 5 steps ahead of everybody else. And they attract pleasers. People that are like, yep, whatever you want. But the pleaser gets really tired of that control. And then the controller gets tired of being in charge all the time. And they're like, why don't you just step up? And they want the pleaser, like, I don't care what you want. Tell me what you want to do, not what I want you to do. And the pleaser will say something like, that's the wrong idea. You need to think how I think, So they're constantly in struggle with each other.
So with these, once you expose to somebody like, hey, this is, a series of events that's caused you to have these emotional traumas or trauma bonds, how do you help them overcome that? Like, just like you expose that to me, like you've definitely said things that resonate with me. And I know I've had a lot of action steps already to move myself forward, but how do you help every person to take steps to overcome that, to realize, hey, you have this instant codependency that you latch onto, and these are your traits, and you need to move away from that, or at least be aware of it to move forward?
So I think you just hit the nail on the head there. So 2 things. Number 1, most survivors who grew up really tough with a lot of stuff happening don't even know how traumatized they were. Why? They're a survivor. They're an overcomer, right? And they love personal development. They love to, like, the Band-Aid on the flesh wound. They just want to, feel better and don't go there. So the first thing is, hey, can we go back and look at what happened and see how that might have affected you? And that's scary to a lot of people. So it's just this awareness, like, oh, I'm not a victim. I don't want to look at how how I was affected by stuff. But because we're unwilling to do that, we keep enacting it out. So awareness is the first key. What if it were true that what you went through in your life affected you? And especially it affects you in your intimate relationships. What if that's true? Step 2 is a step-by-step system to break free. So there wasn't anything when I was researching this, when I first started my own healing journey. That's why I created my processes and my programs to help people break free from this codependency chains. So it's a system. You got to walk people through. It's not like, let's get positive affirmations and just feel better and just realize that you're cool and awesome. No, you got to work. You got to go through a process.
People like me.
Yeah. So I walk people through. I've created the attachment personality patterns, but then I also created a 7-step process called the rapid detachment method, which helps you understand where these patterns were laid and how to reclaim your personal power and undo the damage that's been done. So I have a 7-step process that I take people through.
Wow, that is phenomenal. And Doug, I'm about to give you a kind of a hard task, or at least it'd be hard for me to relay. That's why I'm giving it to you. But is there any way to coincide these patterns that Heidi has recognized to the DISC personality types? Like, obviously, you're talking about 2 separate entities, but people, if they've learned DISC, they have some traits to base off of.
Yeah. So, yes, there is an element of overlap for sure. Like, you just hear the word controller. What would you...
D, baby.
Yeah, you come right up, right? So each pattern will have attributes of that, and we actually haven't done that. Maybe an interesting thing to actually do the scale and kind of go show where those are showing up, because like the pleaser would probably be more on the I spectrum, right? Because they just want to have fun and all that. So
Performer. Pretender would be on the I, because it's all about optics.
Yeah, so
some of our viewers, they've heard my representation of DISC, but you want to give them a quick overview because you seem to have a deeper understanding probably than I do.
Sure. So I'll share it through archetypes. So you guys familiar with the Big Bang Theory?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so one of the great things about humor and satire is they take something that's real and they blow it up to the ridiculous, and then that's what's funny. So one of the D stands for dominance, which is the more, domineering, more controlling. They're quick to the point. They could be very short and impatient and really have a short fuse. Bernadette is a high D. So what's so funny is she's like, 3.5 feet tall. She's got that little mousy voice. But what happens when things aren't going the way she wants? She just, she just blows up and becomes larger than life, takes control of everything. So she's a great example of that archetype of the D personality. Then there's the I, which is stands for influential or inspiring. They're the people who are going to the party. They're the people with the hat, the lampshade hat. They're the ones who are, when they're at a networking event, they're inviting everybody over. That would be Penny. Penny is a more expressive high I, just having fun, being, light and goofy. And they all have...
We're talking about the TV show, The Big Bang Theory, not the scientific evidence of
Yes, the Big Bang Theory TV show. Yeah, so we got Bernadette.
Were you aware of that? Were you just agreeing like Big Bang in general? Are you that big of a nerd?
Big Bang Theory, baby.
Okay. That's the Bama in you. So then,
Classic.
yeah, you have the S's, the supportive, and those are the nurturing, the people who are looking to make sure that there's harmony, everybody is getting along, and they're very conflict averse. And that would be Leonard. Leonard is who keeps the crew together, and he is, he avoids conflict as much as possible, and we see all that play out. And then the C, which is conscientious, or compliant, that would be Sheldon. So Sheldon is everything has to be right, data, everything, all the I's are crossed, the T's are dotted, and everything has to go through that filter. And they all have fears and desires. They have needs. And each of them, when you understand that, then you can help meet them where they're at to communicate more effectively. So maybe that's what we'll do, is take the 8 patterns and do a DISC correlation just to help people understand. Because when people it helps people, like, to your point, like, okay, if I understand DISC, I can use another set of language to understand some of the other subtleties or depth of another sort of style of
and also the Enneagram. I don't know if you guys know the Enneagram, but some of the Enneagram also lines up with that as well. But I'm a big personality nerd. Like I love tests. That's why I created a personality test, because I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with Myers-Briggs, Enneagram. DISC is the only one I'm not obsessed with, probably because you are the expert at that. But yeah.
Well,
Yeah, Doug's got that covered. I'm like, just tell everybody.
I need to really simplify, right? So there's only 4 pieces, so it allows me to move fast, right? I'm a D personality type, so I want it right to the point. Okay, they're obviously an I. Let's move forward with the conversation, right? So if it gets too complicated for me, I'll just throw it to the side and be like, let's wing it, right? But for you to be able to diagnose somebody's, trauma bonds and things like that, obviously you need to go deeper than DISC, right? But DISC has its purpose. It's a simpler version.
But think about this. Think about putting our finger on decades of trauma and only 8 patterns. That's pretty dialed down, man. That's pretty remarkable.
I know whenever you called me out on it, it felt really friggin' dialed down. I'll say that.
Yeah, I think you're an 8 on the Enneagram.
Yeah, I think that's where we came out on it back whenever we did the test. It's been a little time.
Oh, did you took the test?
He took the Enneagram test.
You did, yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty intriguing. Yeah, and it's a lot of the same. They're all correlating to the same person. Like, they are an accurate test, whether it's the Enneagram or the DISC or whatnot. It's just how many metrics, I guess, fold into it to give you an isolated decision.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you just use what works for you.
Right.
Like, if you're not, what's great about having all these different assessments and ways to do some measurement is go, okay, I'm ready to go deeper. I want to find another way to looking at it. It's like having different brushes in your, with your artistry, or different tools in your toolkit. They're all valuable. They all have their place. And some people can take one tool and make something amazing, and other people need all the other stuff.
Face was out of the frame.
Oh, sorry.
I was like, what did she just do? All right, Doug, it means that she pulled your face back in. I got to know, is there some sort of trick or nuance to the orange glasses? Like, do I need to wear orange glasses from now on?
Well, they're blue.
Yeah, he sees you're naked when he
Yeah.
puts them on.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
can see you
that's
naked.
right, too.
I'm charging, by the way.
Well, they're blue light blockers, so
Oh, cool. Okay.
keeping healthy. And they look cool.
I love it. Yeah, if anybody gets to see a picture of Doug with one of his custom suits on, it's amazing what all the bedazzle he puts on those things. It's pretty epic. But as well, so with utilizing these personality types, and as well as understanding what traumas people have gone through, I know Doug, and I presume Heidi as well, y'all are exceptionally strong networkers in the business field. Like, I don't know how you have built the network that you have. I just know if I say a dollar amount, Doug knows somebody with it. If I say somebody inside a certain industry, Doug knows somebody with it. Like, how did you accomplish that? And did the personality types and understanding people assist you in that journey?
Yes and yes. So the original, I love people. So I just find people fascinating, and I love to find ways to connect people. So, and back in when I first got into the music industry, and it was, Tony Robbins was my first exposure to personal development, and I applied that. One of the things he said that resonated with me is that, modeling, like, you want to find someone who has the results that you're looking for, hang out with them. That's how I became so successful in the music industry. I aligned with the people who are getting the best results, and then I connected with them, learned from them, and then I was always looking to add value. I wanted to bring value to the equation, not to just be a succubus and be like, hey, give me info, give me resources. So what we're having, it's a blessing and a curse, because sometimes people don't even know what I do, because I'm already like, hey, what are you doing? I'm like, hey, enough about me. Tell me, so how can I support you? What are you doing? What are you looking for? And then I make the connections, which creates this amazing sort of reciprocity. So I'm able to maintain powerful relationships because there is that opportunity to have powerful conversations and bring something to the table.
How do you remember that? Like, whenever you go get a guy's contact or somebody that you want to be around, and they say, hey, this is what I'm looking for, you're able to pull a need out of them. Do you like write that down with their phone number and like put a date?
Sometimes I'll make the connection right there.
Really? Okay.
I'll just be sitting there and go, oh, I know somebody, hold on. And I'll make the connection. Or if I'm at a networking event, this is a nice hack. Ask the person, who's your ideal referral? Who's your ideal contact? And then when you ask that to every person that you meet in a networking event, you're going to find somebody, oh, do you know Steve? And they'd be like, no, I don't. And then be like, oh, Steve, come here. Come on. You got to meet Dave, like this, right? Or if they go, yeah, I know Steve. Yeah, he's a rock star. You get instant credibility either way.
Yeah.
Because it shows that you're listening. It shows that you actually want to add value. And it gets to the point where I've had people go, okay, Doug, stop. Like, what do you need? Like, you're always bringing me stuff, but what can I do for you?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So how do you remember all of these details? Because if I was at a networking event, I would not remember who Steve was.
Well, the first step is to actually care.
Jeez.
I'm not saying that to you. I mean, in general, the state of genuine curiosity. No,
I don't care. Just to be clear, I suck at networking, and I don't care. I don't know Steve. I don't want to know Steve. Just
yeah.
That's it.
So what I mean by sorry, Kat, I don't mean it. I wasn't meaning it to be derogatory. But it's one of those things where if it's important, like you go in with that mindset of just kind of setting the intention of like, okay, my goal is to meet, have your own people, obviously, that you want to attract and meet, and go, I genuinely want to like make it a focus. It's not that you don't care, but it's like to make it a focus to go, okay, I want to learn about you. And I want to, my goal here tonight, to build my network, to add value, to create the exchange. I want to prime the pump with value. I'm going to make it my point. And at first, it's a little difficult, right? It just becomes a habit. And then one of the things like memorizing names. I mean, hasn't your dad talked to you about the PEG system, right? In NLP, like how you can, I mean, one of the, ways I remember people's names is when I meet them, and I'll get their right spelling too. Like if they have a weird name, I'll ask for the spelling. Or even like if someone says their name is Sarah, and I'll say, oh, with an H? And then they'll know, oh, wow, okay, yeah, no, yes, no, it's not a Sarah with an H, or yes, it is. And then I draw their name in lights over their head. And now every time I see them, I see their name, and I've articulated, oh, it has the H, it doesn't have the H, or what have you. And by putting a little of these little sort of tricks into it and like really wanting to do this and not be thinking what's in it for me, say what's in it for we, then I'm able to keep the focus on the connecting. And it's fun, like just to enjoy the process.
When did you develop this skill or realize that that's what you wanted to continue doing when you network? Because when people go into networking, they don't automatically think, oh, I need to connect with all these people and help them.
Well, that or they don't have the skill sets. Like, I knew I was supposed to do that, and I made excuses of why I wasn't going to do that because I was an introvert and decided I can do this on my own, right?
Well, people that are just getting into entrepreneurship and are going to networking events, they don't realize that that's the goal or that that's the purpose of being there. So how did you develop that knowledge?
So I guess part of it was, I'm sure part of my being, just the way I always was. But I think being in the entertainment industry, in the music industry, enjoying meeting people and being on the road and, getting people in the studio and having to produce a record, which would be, okay, let's, get the right instruments, let's get the right players, let's write. So there was always an element of infusing different energies and really kind of having a Rolodex of resources to go, ooh, this would be, even to the point of like, I know Heidel make fun of me how many guitars I've got and all the guitar pedals and all that. And each one had a specific sort of thing, a use. There was something special about that. And that was the way it would be with people. So I think one of the things when I realized when I left the music industry and started doing the personal development and professional development, it was like making great music, only instead of using instruments, it was still using people and helping them create a masterpiece. Or to the point with the assessments, all these personality traits, is understanding what people bring to the personalities. How can we be more harmonious? How could we make beautiful music together?
Yeah, I love that.
Absolutely, yeah. And there's going to be, there's a lot of people who, like one of my partners now, he is so extroverted. He is good with talking to everybody. He is going to out-network me every single time because that's who he is as a being. He was always like a popular kid in school. Like, he was used to it, whereas I had to get adapted to being highly uncomfortable speaking to just a couple people at each event and getting a little farther until I was like, okay, this is okay to speak to everybody. It's okay to be known, and let's connect everybody to do something great, right? Because it takes more than one person. And especially once I started outsourcing and going outside of my state, primary core area, it was a drastic difference. Some of the context I got immediately, like the first time I went out of state, I went onto a cruise, right? So drove down to Miami, hopped on a boat, and then I left that boat with access to $1.2 million, which is crazy, right? So it changed my life. So it's something that everybody should be aware of and should make valiant efforts to put themselves out of their comfort zone and go for it. Like, make those connections.
Yeah, and I would just, with a little caveat in there as well, to have people think of it's not direct reciprocity. We're not looking to, necessarily get something from that person we're speaking with. It's just build a relationship because they may know somebody who has what we're looking for. And that's why we ask in those framework, so we could bring something, think outside. If I bring something outside of my resource, let me bring you to this person, they're going to go, oh, I see. It's not just about what I have. I know somebody. And it creates, again, more of that geometric synergy as opposed to this, hey, I did for you, you do for me.
I love it. Yeah, what's the rule of thumb? You're 6 people into the United States away from any contact you need.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Right, the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
I don't know what that means. Am I too young for that? Like, what does that mean?
Apparently.
I haven't heard that either.
Really? So there was a game. You know who Kevin Bacon is, right?
No, they don't know Kevin Bacon. Come on.
Wow. I thought he was reasonably iconic.
Baby. He was in Footloose. Have you ever heard of the movie Footloose?
I saw like an old commercial one time.
Okay. They've heard of Footloose. They know it as a thing that existed at a point in time.
Okay. So, the term 6 degrees of separation. That's what you were saying.
Yeah.
Right. So then someone took that and gamified it and said 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, and basically would play a game of Kevin Bacon was in such and such a movie with so-and-so, who's in a movie with so-and-so, and then just sort of exemplified the theory.
Gosh, that seems like your flavor, Doug.
Guys, did you know, I'm just curious if you knew this, there was a time when if you needed to make a phone call while you were driving, you had to pull over and put money in a machine that was a phone that had a cord attached to it. They kept it in a booth called a phone booth.
My parents bought me one when I was younger to have in my room. It was pink. So, yes,
Okay.
I knew what it was.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, okay. Heidi, back to it, because I've got some internal thoughts while we've been diving back into the business world. I'm like, a lot of things I've seen internally in some of my own life and with, close peers. How do you identify the difference between a toxic individual and codependency, or if they're the same, or how to regulate either or? Like, that's pretty deep there.
I wondered that as well.
Like, what's considered toxic?
It's all the same. There's only so many ways you can draw a square. So I guess what you're asking yourself is, how toxic is it? So that's the thing, so what's your scale is your emotional duress. When you're in a relationship with somebody, how do you feel? Are you drained every time you're around them? Or do you feel judged? Are you criticized? Are you condemned? Can you not be right enough? Do you need to be perfect? Who do you have to be loved? And who can't you be to be loved? And is that okay with you? So I think the problem is that people who grow up in toxicity have a broken barometer. So what we do is we get into relationships with people and we don't realize they're toxic. We're like, doesn't everybody do that? Isn't everybody like this? Isn't everybody a Jekyll and Hyde? Isn't everybody back and forth? Doesn't everybody just ignore you for 3 days when they're mad at you? And we think toxic behaviors are like dating issues, and they're not. They're abusive. So I think,
and sometimes I think they don't know what to do and it's not there.
And sometimes people are so used to that, they recreate it. Right? I'm addicted to the chaos. I'm addicted to it. And I don't feel love unless it's toxic, So I think just awareness is the first step. And I think at the end of the day, not to overcomplicate it, we just say, is it working for you? Are you feeling as loved as you could? Are you loving as much as you want to? Are you in a relationship that causes you confusion, anxiety, resentment, or pain? There's something wrong in it.
Yeah. And is there any hope because a lot of people are going to want to help the person who has the toxicity, because I think we all internally feel it's because of some trauma, right? Something's off, and what's causing that. Is there any way they can assist that person?
Well, here's the crazy thing. Like attracts like. All right. So the problem with the codependent is attracted to the toxicity because the codependent is also toxic. All right. But they don't recognize it. Okay. So like attracts like. I think you're the problem. You're the messed up one. I was almost going to curse, but I won't. You're the messed up one. You're the problem. Okay. Well, but I'm in this too. And it's a co-addicted relationship. It's a codependent relationship. So we're both just a different flavor of toxic. We're both sides of the same coin.
Yeah,
it's codependent. You can't be in a codependent relationship with yourself. You're in a codependent relationship with another codependent person.
Right. So is there ever a situation where there is a toxic person and then there could be a not toxic person in that relationship? Or is it always like they're both toxic?
No. So in order for me to participate in a toxic relationship, I have to, let's not use the word toxic anymore. Okay. Let's take that word out. In order for me to be with an unhealthy person, there needs to be a level of unhealthiness in myself as well. And so we think about a hero, we think about Superman, and we think about a wounded person. The wounded person, or the Lex Luthor, or whoever is the villain, needs a hero, but the hero also gets something out of fighting Lex Luthor. He gets to feel powerful, he gets to feel important. Superman needs a villain, right? The evil queen is getting something out of torturing Snow White, but Snow White gets to feel victorious because she kills the queen. You know what I mean? So we're all playing a role in some kind of dysfunctional relationship dance. Yeah. I have to be unhealthy if I'm in that unhealthy thing. Because if I was healthy, I wouldn't be in it.
It just may not display the same way.
My unhealthiness comes out in a different way. Superman doesn't look like Lex Luthor, but they're both the same codependent.
Wow. Okay. So just to tell you the evolution of me, because now I'm like having flashbacks of stuff and trauma and pain or whatever it is. I'm like, okay. So
great. Good. You're in good hands. If you cry, even better. Let's make this happen. Come on.
Yeah. So like my first relationship, I would say I was highly codependent, like to the point of whenever it ended and whatnot, it wasn't fully by my degree there, my control. And I was like to the point of having panic attacks, anxiety attacks, like really bad off. To the next relationship I got into very soon after, I was the same way, right? Lex Luthor, that whole scenario where I was trying to fix somebody all the time. And it just kept evolving as I was getting closer to who I am now, which all those instances, being able to go back and reflect on, helped me to understand who I was and what I was going through. But is that a common journey that you see with people that are improving? And if they're not improving, do they just seem to repeat the cycle over and over again?
So basically, that's your barometer. It's like, oh, I'll meet a different person. It's the same person, different face, right? That's a person who's not progressing on their path. That's a person who's really unhealthy and just goes from one unhealthy thing to the next unhealthy thing, but they don't recognize that they're also unhealthy. So they're waiting for the right person to come along and make them okay. But so if they realize, hey, man, I've got an issue here, right? I'm participating in this. I'm the common denominator. Then what they do is they attract a higher quality, a healthier person every time they circle around their own stuff. you know? A healing from trauma isn't like a straight line. Like I'm going to start here in the depths of, despair, and I'm going to become an excellent human being and have no problems. It looks like loops. I heal a little bit, then I loop back around and experience something else that comes up, and then I get in a relationship and it triggers me up, and I do a little work and I get out of that and I get into a new thing. And then I'm in my work and I'm in a good relationship, but in work, I hold myself back. I can't make as much money as I want to. Ooh, there's that trauma again. It's just showing up in money now. Okay, let me work through my money stuff. All right, great. I'm successful now. Now I have kids. Uh-oh, reactivated some trauma. So you're never really there. You just have higher quality problems.
We're always
A
on
higher
the path.
quality of a problem, a higher quality of a problem, keep elevating in my life, but problems never go away.
Right. I mean, there would be no fun in the journey if you came out perfect and you didn't have any internal problems or external problems like that.
Well, that's a great way to look at life. That probably suits you very well. Other people would say, I'd be happy not to have any problems. You know what I mean? So, hey, whatever.
Yeah, people without problems are people in cemeteries, buried.
I know a lot of my clients say to me, I just want it to be my turn to be happy. They're really tired of problems. They're tired of being affected by other people's stuff. They just want to have their turn. They'd love to have like a happy life without worrying about somebody else all the time or being full of anxiety and stress.
Show them that most of it's self-inflicted. Like, are they able to now make efforts to create that scenario?
Listen, I have people that have transformed their relationships, started as toxic, and I have 2 healthy individuals that are securely attached, that are happy, that are on their way. I have other people who have left relationships and got into the new thing. That was the thing they always wanted. I have other people that just want to be alone because they're like free for the first time. So everybody gets better, but better is a matter of preference. What is your better?
Subjective.
Where do you want to go? Yeah.
Absolutely. That is amazing. And just to add to that, as I was going through these relationships, is just what correlation that brought me back to my past, because that's what we were talking about, who I would attract. And as well, during those same time frames, I went from an S personality type to a C, now over to a D. So they definitely have some sort of interlocking, because I can recognize that I was a different person then completely. My personality type has changed, and I was searching different mates and things like that. So
I love that perspective, and I think that's true. So I always say you don't have to figure out who you are, right? People are always searching to figure out who you are. You have to figure out who you've been and who's not you anymore. Because most of us are not who we really are. We're who we've needed to be. We needed to be a C. We needed to be an S. We needed to be a controller. We needed to be a whatever. But when you strip it all away and you start to excavate your authentic self that's buried under all that, then you're free to like unleash your true authentic self, because I look at my own patterns. I used to be a people pleaser. I don't give a shit now. Sorry. There it goes. There it is. Have it.
Bleep that out.
Now we got to hit the button.
But I used to like, that was how I coped in my own family, is like, just be quiet, be small, do what you need to do. Don't make too much noise. Don't breathe too loud, like just constrain. And because of that, I developed an eating disorder. I was always trying to shrink down, keep myself small. And you can see I've clearly healed. I mean,
You got big hair.
I'm pretty loud, right? I got big hair, big lots of things, So
Oh, the listeners so missed that.
Glasses.
big glasses. We think I was talking about
That's
glasses.
right.
But yes, I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right, hon. I think that when you become more of who you really are, and then what the coolest thing is, then you become because I know this isn't a spiritual thing, but on a spiritual quest, we realize, oh, I don't fit into any of those boxes, and I never did. So the end game is just to be all. I am that I am. I'm all of those things, and I'm an integrated human being.
Wow.
I don't have to be in a box anymore.
And the word character is based out of the word, it means to chisel away. So when you're building character, you're actually shedding what has prevented you from being your authentic self.
Wow. I wish I had a character jawline, but sure doesn't feel like so.
Can we turn them up?
I don't know how.
Okay.
Am I not talking loud enough, Heidi?
Well, you guys are quiet over here, and I don't know if it's my
Volume
speaker.
up all the way.
Like, I keep trying to turn you up all day.
Oh,
I don't know what that
goodness.
is.
Well,
Yeah.
okay, so we went from toxicity versus codependence. Can we go the opposite route and say
I know
someone
where you're going with this.
someone that's in a loving relationship versus not realizing that it's just codependency in their partner scenario? Like their partner's actually just codependent upon them, which could later on cause issues they just don't recognize yet.
Not just the partner. Like they said, they're both codependent.
They are, yes, but how does either party recognize that whenever it feels to be a loving
Yeah.
situation?
So, ironically, the path to healing through this is kind of like 3 stages in any, whether you do it alone or in a partnership or with a therapist or with a coach. So we think about how this originated is I went through a stage of dependence where I was able to get my needs met and I felt safe and everything great happened there, right? In the dependency stage, I could count on you. You were consistent. Whoever was taking care of you was always there. And then if that goes really well, you move into independence, where you have a little more distance from one another and you go through this stage of like, I see you see me, we're free to be individuals, we value and appreciate each other's perspectives, we can conflict resolution, we're not enmeshed. And then if that works really well in that independence where it's okay for me to be me and it's okay to be for you, then I move into interdependence, which is a healthy form of codependence. And interdependence is we are we, I am me, and you are you. But if any of those phases are jacked up, I take a pit stop into codependency, which is I pretend, I hustle, I scramble, I'm nervous, I'm anxious, I'm withdrawn, I'm all these things. And so how do you get out of that is when you meet somebody, the first thing you do as a couple is you go, can I depend on you? You go back through those phases as an adult. You get into your couplehood and you're like, are you steady? Are you available? Are you consistent? If it is, and there's that baseline, great, now we can move into independence. Am I free to be me? Are you free to be you? Can we be a strong, independent individuals and go through that? And when we disagree, is it safe? Am I allowed to have a different opinion than you? Am I allowed to state when I don't want to do things and you're going to handle that okay? Who are we in conflict? And then if that works well, then we have this interdependent relationship where we are just like yin and yanging. But if there's a hiccup in any one of those phases, you'll move out in and out of codependency all the time. So you got to look at where you're at in your relationship. Do we have a healthy, are we consistent? Are we stable? Am I emotionally and psychologically available and physically available and financially responsible and psychologically responsible to myself?
So, and that boils down to is a trust issue, ultimately. Trusting the relationship, trusting the process, trusting the
Trusting
space.
the individual.
Yeah.
Because codependency is a trust issue. I mean, nothing got right. I can't be who I am. That's not good enough. I'm going to be whoever I need to be because I can't trust the world to meet my needs. I can't trust God. I can't trust another human. That's where all that originates. So I think I can speak of our journey. It can be very healing. You can come into a relationship very codependent and heal if there's this level of self-awareness. Doug and I came into a codependent relationship. He was a fixer. I was also a fixer and a withholder and a controller. I had multiple personality disorder. Okay. And he was full tilt Superman cape trying to rescue me because when he met me, I was like on the self-destruct cycle of accomplishment, which most withholders do. I was super successful. And then I was a binge drinker at night. I would like self-destruct. I'd like get on top of the world and then pull the rug out from myself. And he was like, well, you're this amazing person, but I can save you. I can come in and rescue you too. So it was like ticking all his boxes. But once I saw him and I was like, well, he's a pretty solid human being. He's probably the most sane, solid person I've ever met in my life. I started to feel safe to go deeper and to let go of my own attachment issues. And then when I started to heal, I put the binge drinking behind me. I started to get into this codependency work. Now, he could have very easily gone and found another person to rescue, Captain Save-A-Ho. Okay. He could have said, I need to go
Save-A-Ho
and go do my thing. Okay. But he said, well, my value isn't in fixing. My value is just in being, myself. So he worked on his codependence too. And then we grew out of this. And now together, the fixer part of us still exists. But what do? We go save the world together, right? We don't do it in our personal relationships. We have a mission and purpose in life to help people. We get that fix still of wanting to help people, wanting to contribute to people's lives. In this intimate relationship, we're just radically ourselves. and full acceptance of one another.
I feel like hearing your story also helped me, and probably is going to help the listeners realize that this is normal and that eventually you're going to get out of it, and maybe it's with help or just on your own figuring it out. Because hearing your story, I'm like, yeah, I definitely was codependent at one point with my first boyfriend, and I figured it out with many years of just being by myself and was able to get through that. But at the time, I thought something was wrong with me. I thought I was broken.
I wrote a book called, let me show you this. This is how not alone you are. I wrote a book called What's Wrong with Me? Because this is the primary question people that kind of don't realize what's going on have inside of them. And I love the fact that you went on a personal journey and you figured a lot of, because you're a brilliant girl. You're a brilliant woman, right? You can figure out a lot of things. And I did that too for a long time, just try to figure it out on my own. And, but the thing is that, and I still struggle with that, but the value of bouncing these ideas and being in an intimate partnership where you can have another human being, whether that's with somebody, nobody's meant to do this work alone, ironically, is what I'm trying to say. Okay. Relationship trauma happens in relationship, and so does recovery. Relationship recovery happens in relationship, just like relationship trauma. And the thing is when you have somebody who's been there and can be with you, it's the iron that sharpens the iron. Somebody who's already been through the fire, who's already, so that's the value in that. And I know I've healed tremendously inside, and he's healed tremendously inside because we keep calling each other a little more forward into our more authentic destinies.
And that's where also in any of this work, the depth of your relationship is going to be directly proportionate to the depth of your vulnerability.
Amen.
Your willingness to get that uncomfortable and to challenge yourself and to be willing to kind of have that faith, right? That that there is that space there.
I'll give you another example of how these patterns show up. Like Doug is let's use the Enneagram for any of your listeners who love that test, right? Doug's a 7. And what that means on the Enneagram is he's a pain avoider. He is a distractor. He's the guy that once has 5,000 guitars. He's the connector. He knows 5 million people on his phone. But he does that because he's always outside of himself, right? Like look at, an 8 that I am is a bull in a china shop. I see an issue. I want to confront it head on. I'm not pain avoidant. I want to dig in, man. Let's go uncover this. That's the word to truth and justice. And let's do this thing. But when I confront, I come at him like that. And he's like a deer in headlights and he doesn't want to feel pain. So I remember the other day we had a deep soul connection and we went down to Soul Valley. And at the end, we were standing in Walmart or in the Walmart parking lot. And I looked over at him and I was like, how are you feeling? He was like, yeah, I'm good. It was like shell shocked. You know what I mean? Because he went there with me and I go, I feel so much closer to you. Oh my God. I feel so great. I'm so glad we did that because conflict from my personality makes us closer, right? If we can talk about the real issues and get into the real stuff, but for him, that's the last thing he wants to do. He wants to live in a higher vibration all the time, but some of the, yeah.
I'm definitely an 8. Yeah, for sure.
I know. Yeah.
I know what I am.
You should take it and then let me know. I can definitely send you guys. There's a test you can put in the show notes for people. It's nothing to do with us, but it's Truity. That's the one I found, TRUITY.com. And they could take an Enneagram test. It's 10 minutes.
Ooh.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. And then you just get the number. And we love Dr. Tom LaHue, LAHUE, who is an Enneagram expert on YouTube. And he's the best. He's so good.
That is awesome. That is great. We appreciate those contacts. Yeah, because I'm a deep studier on stuff like this. It's played a huge role in my self-improvement, my business, everything. Understanding other people, which means I actually can internalize and understand myself and my own actions. It's played a huge role. So I'm deeply appreciative to Paul Fink and all y'all for getting me involved that direction. Had never been introduced to that type of learning before.
Well, I can tell you the disc is really good. My test that people want to take on HeidiRain.com is if they want to work on their intimate relationships and work on themselves. But if you want to understand other people, The Enneagram is one of the best ways to know somebody's number. When you're sitting with them, you know exactly, you can tell by what they're saying to you. We are certified Enneagram coaches, so we're able to like do that work as well, because that test is the most accurate I've ever found with like, oh, you're a 2. Here's what I know exactly, not to manipulate. I know it's an 8 can sound like I'm going to use that information to get what I want from you. And that's an 8 personality pattern, but really it helps you kind of get inside the mind of another person like this. It's like your superpower. You can just get in there and figure it out. So the Enneagram is a great tool. And we use that in our relationship coaching as well. So.
It's the most compassionate thing to do, actually. It's not manipulative because it's really understanding where they're coming from and not trying to.
Yeah, that's good. It's
Wow.
true.
Wow, Doug.
It's true, baby. Nice.
Yeah, and I guess with all this, if anybody's considering talking to Heidi and whatnot, I definitely would, because with all entrepreneur or different journeys with self-improvement and things like that, I've seen either way you're paying for it, whether you're paying for a coach or paying in ignorance, because you either got to have ignorance and time, or you pay a little money and expedite time, because that's what you're paying for, is to learn faster. So one way or another, whether you think you're paying for it or not, you're going to. Just
you're
how
going to
fast
pay
you wanna-
either way.
Yeah. I mean, in business, I think it's helped me the most with the Enneagram, because as an 8, I just want people to I can be in a meeting and people I'm like, get to the point, man. What are we doing? We're beating around this bush. We're driving 500 miles around the country road. What do you need to say? I get so frustrated, but then I realize, oh my gosh, I'm talking to a 2 who just wants to like make sure everybody has coffee and a donut and everybody's like super happy and comfortable and wants to hear what your kids are doing, or a 5 who's like, doesn't want to be there at all. And they're in their notebook and how, what they're going through, or a 6 that's worried about what we're going to be talking about in the meeting, and so like, all these things, and it's like, it just makes you a better leader. It makes you a better employee. It just makes you better as an entrepreneur. I mean, I think the key to surviving in life is patterns. I really do. I think when you understand what patterns somebody's running, you're in like Flint.
So it's pattern and communication with and through them.
Yes, and communicating through their pattern.
Yeah.
If I know that you're 7, I'm not going to talk to you like I'm talking to another 8, where we would get off on just like, go. You know what I mean? So
it's so it's same in the same way we talk about using DISC. It's just a deeper understanding,
much deeper.
Much with more nuance, more. So the best way to describe it as well is someone, you could look at them and go, oh, are you a DC or a DI? Right. So, and there's those different flexibilities. So imagine if in between those, there was more clarity into where they really are and how to, meet them.
Yeah, that makes sense, because if she's describing a 2 and all that, I'm like, oh, they're a C, they're a S, all the same pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Really, there's 8 factors whenever you look at this thing, because you can fall in between. So
right.
That's super interesting how they coincide. Oh, I love that
Isn't
stuff.
it cool?
It is super cool. Well, you got anything else? I've got a lot of information here. Now I got new YouTube channels to follow. I got to go to Heidi's side again. Like, we just restarted it back into this again.
Where can everyone find you guys?
I think for the free test, since that's what we talked about right now, they can go to HeidiRain.com and just HEIDIRAIN.com and just take that free assessment. That would be a great place to start. And then for the free resources, they can take the Enneagram test on that Truity site. And so just starting there, just like with the insight into their own patterns, would be a really cool place to begin. And couples, like, their minds are blown when they're like, oh my God, it is the most loving, compassionate thing you can do, is to speak to somebody, not in their love language, but in their pattern language. Like, who are they?
Yeah.
I mean, that's much deeper than a love language.
Well, and you could use a cool analogy. It's like, grabbing a tool, right? The old saying, if all you have is a hammer, everything's got to be a nail. Right. So it's understanding, oh, okay.
8s can get that. 8s are like, I am a hammer. I'm Thor. But they're like.
And the 7's like, look at this amazing toolkit. Look at all these.
The 7's like, oh, what is this? Oh, look, here's a screw. Yeah. I mean, for sure. Well, we love you guys. We're happy to see you today. We miss you. It's good to see your faces.
Yeah, hopefully we'll all get to link up again soon. And Doug, I think I'm starting to figure this thing out. Do you have a need, sir? What can I help you with?
So, well, I mean, obviously this has been a great conversation, and the other side of what I do is like doing breakthroughs, doing, like creating ways for people to connect even more deeply through experience. So I love, my biggest passion when it comes to those types of experiences is getting groups together. So if it's a corporate thing, that's, kind of the other thing I do is doing corporate training, corporate speaking, doing fire walks, glass walks, board breaks, hour breaks to create an experience where people come together and they leave with new distinctions because they experienced it, not just intellectualized it. Because that to me is where I guess it's the performer part of me, where it's like when I saw Tony Robbins the first time, it's like, oh, I get it. Entertained and educated. And in the past, I would just entertain. The music was that. But man, if people can leave with an experience that was like, oh my gosh, and go, wow, I just learned something new about myself, about my company, about my partner, whatever it is. I mean, we incorporate them in our experiences as well. I mean, can you imagine the experience that a couple could have walking over broken glass together, or, like holding the arrow as someone walks into it, the trust to have to, experience that, right? It's a powerful way to have a visceral aha moment.
I think it's essential. There's a huge difference between saying, oh, yeah, I know how business works and I could do it, versus actually living through it and experiencing it. It's two different ball games, and you'll be a different person whenever you experience it. Whereas if you say, oh, yeah, I know how, I can see how it would work, you never change. You never learn anything from it. You'll be in the same state 3 years later.
Because you have to run the same pattern that you've always ran, which is doing it in your head, running the same filters.
Yep, that's it. That is a beautiful thing, Doug. I appreciate that, and we're probably going to take you up on that to help some of our team as well, internal team here in Alabama. So we'll get you out here to the muddy waters as well soon.
Right on. I say, I don't know if that's a state I've been to. I think that may be one of the ones I have not been to yet.
Everybody steer away from this place? Jeez, what have you guys heard?
Because you're here.
Don't do that. That's West Virginia. That's where I'm from. I'm from West Virginia. Okay, I'm not Appalachia. I mean, come on.
Well,
Alabama.
Everyone is.
I want to go to Alabama. I'll come with them.
Yeah.
I'll just hang out with you guys. All right. I'll cheer on the arrows. Great. I'll come see you. We'll hang out. We'll do something fun. We'll go to spa day. Let these boys break arrows. It'll be awesome. Yeah. Love it.
Thanks, guys.
Oh, you're welcome. Loved you guys. See you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Well, thank you for listening, everyone. That was really emotional. Oh,
For some of us, for the 7s and everyone else, the 8s are okay.
If you know me, you know I cry to everything. So I'm surprised it took 9 episodes for me to finally cry. Oh, no, wait. I think it's 10. I think we're on the 10th episode. Anyway, if you liked this episode, please comment and subscribe, and also go to our YouTube and like, comment, and subscribe as well. It'll help us so much, and we will see you guys next week.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Appreciate you. Hope you learned something. If not, make use of it. Jeez.
Bye, guys.
See ya.